Hello all you lovely women out there. Happy Women's Day. Welcome to the 49th video by Pale Blue Thoughts. Since it is Women's Day, we will dedicate this video to all our women viewers. Ladies, you are awesome. These days, we talk a lot about women empowerment, feminism, etc. in our lives and media. A disclaimer before we start. We hold the view that women and men do have equal rights in all facets of life and that women are in no way inferior to men. But recently, we witnessed a news that made a lot of headlines. A person named Nas Patel, who is the founder of an NGO, filed a case against the popular online shopping platform called Myntra for defaming women. She claimed that their logo was derogatory to women. This prompted the company to modify their logo, fearing public outrage and loss of business. But was this logo derogatory? We are not going to question whether what she did was right or wrong. Instead, we will look at why she would have found it defaming women. Why did some people spot something was wrong while others missed it? Is it because some have a dirty mind? Today, we will look at the science behind the Myntra logo. Yes, you heard it right. Science behind the Myntra logo. Myntra has been there for a long time, and so has the logo. So why this sudden controversy? Why is it that no one found it offensive for so many years? Did they miss the pattern? To some, the logo is derogatory and an insult to womanhood. I am sure many of you would not have looked at it from that angle before the controversy. So why do we see patterns in such symbols? That is what we will be discussing today. We come across a lot of abstract patterns and symbols and logos in our daily lives. And a whole lot of these are very popular too, that you tend to recognize a brand just by seeing the logo. You don't even need to see the name. When we hear the word apple, you immediately picturize a red shiny apple and you associate the word with that. What helps us make such associations in our mind when we see such abstract patterns? Apophenia. Apophenia is the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between seemingly unrelated things. The term was coined by psychiatrist Klaus Conrad in his 1958 publication on the beginning stages of schizophrenia. Apophenia can be considered a commonplace effect of brain function. Taken to an extreme, however, it can be a symptom of paranoid schizophrenia, where a patient sees hostile patterns in ordinary things. Apophenia is also typical of conspiracy theories where coincidences may be woven together into an apparent plot. Here you are actually taking two patterns and trying to find a link between them. Sometimes you tend to create a link between them when none actually exists. It is all in your brain. One of the most famous examples of this is Pareidolia. Pareidolia is the tendency for incorrect assessment of an object, pattern, or meaning known to the observer. Common examples are perceived images of animals, faces, or objects in cloud formations, or lunar pareidolia, or the moon rabbit. Pareidolia was at one time considered a symptom of psychosis, but it is now seen as a normal human tendency. We see many examples of this. You tend to see human faces on rock formations, faces on Mars, and even in everyday objects. One of the most commonly seen examples of this are emojis. It is very easy to spot a face among a circle and some lines. This is used even in cameras and mobile phones today when we use the technology of face detection. The program inside the camera or the phone is designed to detect a face by looking at the spatial arrangement of our eyes, mouth, nose, etc. So even a camera can detect a face among the many patterns that it sees. So it is because of this special ability of our brain that we can see patterns or faces in abstract arrangements. Another example of apophenia is the gambler's fallacy. Gambler's fallacy refers to the erroneous thinking that a certain event is more or less likely given a previous series of events. It is actually a logical fallacy where one assumes that because we have seen a pattern in the order of things, we incorrectly assume that the pattern would continue or change in the future. I will explain this better. This is most often seen in people who take a chance with lotteries or gamble. The person who takes one lottery ticket out of, say, 1,000,000 lotteries issued, his chance of winning is one chance in 1,000,000. But what happens is that they think that since they didn't win anything last time, they might get luckier the next time. They conveniently forget that the chance or percentage of winning doesn't depend upon their last trials. The percentage remains the same. Today, the chance is still 1 in 1,000,000 no matter how many times you have taken the lottery ticket in the past. They think that it didn't work last time, so this time it will. However, this false notion that their luck will turn encourages people to keep betting while gambling, thus resulting in huge losses. We often fall prey to this fallacy ourselves many times in our lives. Many superstitions like bad luck when a black cat crosses the path and the belief in astrological predictions, etc. are a result of this. You conveniently count the hits and forget the misses. It is all a matter of belief without any factual data. So the next time you hear someone say, "Don't worry, things will only get better now," whisper gambler's fallacy in their ears. It is apparent in financial crisis too, especially in areas of stockbroking. The market has been dull for some time, so you lie in wait for the pattern to reverse. Statistically too, apophenia is an example of type 1 error. We have explained this in one of our earlier videos, where a person hears a rustling in the grass and thinks it is a predator and flees. If it is not a predator and it is just the wind, then he had made a type 1 cognitive error or a false positive. He doesn't lose anything. But if the person had gone to investigate the source of the sound and it happened to be a predator, he would end up on his dinner table. Here, he has made a type 2 cognitive error, also called a false negative. His likelihood of surviving and spreading his genes has come to a full stop. So people making type 2 cognitive errors tend to be phased out, and only people with type 1 cognitive errors are likely to have survived. And hence, we too tend to see patterns which encourage false positive. Now let us come to recognize some patterns. What you may be seeing is a horse. Look again. It could be a frog too. Take a look at this picture now. Do you see an old lady facing you or a young lady facing away? I'm sure you are able to recognize these patterns. This is a specialty of our brain. We are programmed to come to a fast conclusion so that the brain doesn't use so much energy to think. We saw an abstract pattern and immediately recognized the pattern as a horse, and you're done. When you looked again, you instantly recognized the pattern as a frog. One of the explanations put forth by evolutionary psychologists for apophenia is that it is not a flaw in the cognition of human brains, but rather something that has come about through years of need. The study of this topic is referred to as error management theory. One of the most accredited studies in this field is Skinner's box and superstition. This experiment involved taking a hungry pigeon, placing it in a box, and releasing a food pellet at a random time. The pigeon received a food pellet while performing some action, and so, rather than attributing the arrival of the pellet to randomness, it repeated its action. And it continued to do so until another pellet fell. If the pigeon was pecking its feathers, for example, while a pellet fell, it went on doing the same, thinking that it was due to its actions that the pellet fell. As the pigeon increased the number of times it performed the action, it gained the impression that it also increased The times it was rewarded with a pellet, although the release in fact remained entirely random. The same thing happens to us with superstitions such as astrology. We tend to equate that because we performed this puja or sacrifice, we got the desired result. Let us look at another random picture now. Do you see a pattern or an object here? Pause the video and look at it. If you didn't see, look at it now. Do you see a Dalmatian dog here? You do see it better when it is outlined. Now let us go back to the first picture. You can see the dog clearly now. Once your brain learns to recognize the pattern, it cannot be undone. It is stuck. Another important point to note is that you might take a rock formation as a face, but do you take a human and perceive them as a rock? Nope. We only seek patterns in abstract forms. The ones that we recognize, we don't generally attribute abstractness to them. Now that we know what pattern seeking is and why we do it, let's come back to the Myntra logo. Did you find it offensive? When you saw it first, did you notice that it was like a picture of a woman lying with her legs spread? Many saw it only when the controversy broke out. It had been right in front of our eyes for a long time now. Once the lady mentioned it, you started to recognize the pattern. Just like when you saw the Dalmatian dog when we traced its outline. Now when you look back at the logo, you can see the pattern clearly. Now we cannot undo it, and hence it became necessary for Myntra to change their logo. With all due respect to all the women out there, what we want to ask is, what is the point of this? Is this worth a controversy? We will let you decide. And what about these logos? Aren't they offensive too if you apply the same logic? So you see, science is there even in what you see or don't see. You can't remove science from any part of your life. Don't you see? When you understand the science behind such pattern-seeking behaviors and understand that it is a byproduct of evolution, and you learn why we do what we do, controversies cease to exist. It is all because of a dirty pattern-seeking mind. Case closed. So women, stop slipping into glass slippers. Go break the glass ceiling. The world is yours just as much as it is ours. Challenge the stereotypes and march on. Pale Blue Thoughts supports women's rights. Nope's Homo sapiens sapiens rights.